You're listening to the Baumbastic Podcast with Andrew Ellis on Inside Arkansas.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Baumbastic Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ellis, here presented by Inside Arkansas. It is February 12th. It is Wednesday afternoon. We are now 2 days away from Arkansas baseball. That's Dave Van Horn days away. And we are much closer now, 3 hours closer to be exact, to Arkansas season opener, which has now been pushed up to noon on Friday, with Arkansas announcing a revised schedule for the weekend due to some impending weather. We're going to get into that and the details of that. Arkansas also announced their starting rotation for the weekend. Not a big surprise for most of you that have been keeping up and paying attention throughout this whole offseason, but we're going to talk about that as well. And I wanted to do like a little bit of a condensed episode of the show today. So again, Arkansas plays basketball tonight at 8 p.m. So, about 5 hours here by the time this comes out. So I always am like hesitant. I'm like, do I want to do a Baumbastic podcast on these days when Arkansas plays later tonight? These typically are like view count wise lower because, of course, people are watching basketball and sometimes these videos can get lost in the shuffle. So I was kind of ambivalent about whether I even wanted to do a show today to, not take the shine away from basketball. He's got a big game against LSU tonight. But we had kind of enough go on today, of course, with the announced schedule, the rotation change. We got to hear from DVH, by the way, DVH, Kendall Diggs, and Will McIntyre all today. And so I figured there was just kind of enough going on to where I kind of needed to come out here and say something. And of course, anytime there's an excuse for me to talk baseball, I'm going to take it. So let's start right away with the schedule update for those of you, in case you missed it. By the time this comes out, I'm sure most of you will have seen it, but if not, perfectly fine. I want this to be your one-stop shop for all baseball content, and so I don't want there to be anybody who really relies on just this show to tell them what's going on. I want them to be in the know. So again, Arkansas was supposed to start the season at 3 p.m. on Friday. 3:02 is usually what it ended up being. That will now be a doubleheader on Friday. They took the Sunday game and basically moved it to noon on Friday is basically what's happening. So you see Friday, they will start the series and the season at noon. And then the game 2 Friday will be 30 to 45 minutes after the conclusion of game 1. So we'll see what time that ends up being, likely in that 3:30, 4 o'clock range. Saturday at 2, sticking with their regular time. No game on Sunday. And what's interesting about this is Sunday is actually the day of the week where like there's possibly sun. Like I don't think it's going to snow or anything, but the temperatures are low. I think the high was like 31, 32 last I checked. It's going to be in the mid 20s most of the day. So no surprise that they wanted to not play on that day. Saturday, there is still some potential rain. Now, of course, I just use the Apple iPhone weather app. I don't look too deeply on this weather stuff, but it looks like there's still a chance of rain on Saturday. So we'll see if that ends up being a factor. And then, of course, Monday at noon, it will be cold then, but Arkansas will wrap up their 4-game series, hopefully then again. So we will continue to keep our eye on this and see if any other developments happen. But that's the first big change. And Friday appears to be a day where, the high is 48. There's no rain yet in the forecast. So it kind of makes sense that they would try and get 2 in. I saw that I think Little Rock baseball is also doing the same thing, not the same area necessarily, but so it kind of makes sense. Glad that we're not going to have to freeze on Sunday. That's going to be nice. I've also learned over the years to trust whoever Dave Van Horn's weather guy is. The dude is on top of it. They're not perfect. Nobody's perfect when it comes to predicting the weather. But anytime Arkansas does a change to the schedule or they move a game up or move a game back or whatever, I always look back in hindsight and I'm like, they made the right decision. Thank God they did. They kind of got this in perfectly. Of course, every now and then there's those weekends where you can't really do anything to avoid it. But over the years, Arkansas's had to obviously adjust the schedule all the time. You're playing baseball outside, just one of those things, especially this time of year. It more often than not works out. So again, we'll see if there are any other changes to be made to the schedule. But for now, that's how Arkansas's 4-game series will take place. Noon on Friday, 30, 45 minutes after that, Saturday at 2, Monday at noon. That's currently where we're at, and we will continue to have coverage of it all here at Inside Arkansas. And by the way, so I've been promoting in every episode I've been doing, every day I've been talking, been saying we are going to be doing a Baumbastic live watch along for the first game of the season. That still applies. Those plans Well, I can't say they haven't changed because they have changed, but they are still in motion. We will still be watching the Arkansas season opener together. And so this is a little bit of breaking news. Inside Arkansas Live, our daily show that we do here on Inside Arkansas with me, John, and Curtis. It normally is a 12 to 1:30 show. We are going to move it up on Friday. We are going to start that at 11 a.m. So I know a lot of people that listen to it on their lunch break. That's going to be a little bit tough. And hell, I'm sure there's some people who don't care about baseball who are going to be really annoyed that we are doing this. But with the baseball season starting at noon, we didn't want to be doing our normal Inside Arkansas live show in the middle of the first game of the season when a lot of people likely, hopefully, if you're really a ball knower and a baseball watcher, you will be watching the game. You will not be watching Inside Arkansas Live, especially, talking basketball or whatever. So we're going to do that at 11 o'clock. Our Inside Arkansas Live show will be a little bit condensed, but it will lead right into the baseball season opener, which again, we're going to stop that stream. I'm going to hop over. I'm going to be sitting in the same spot, but we're going to have another stream set up for the baseball Baumbastic watch along. So everybody still be there for that. You just got to be there 3 hours early, and we'll see if I change my mind. I'm currently planning on doing it throughout the entire thing. Just like having it, obviously it's going to end up being 5-6 hours. So it's going to be a little bit of a marathon. So I understand that some people pop in and hop out, but F it, dude. I'm just going to go full send. I'm just going to stream Arkansas's first day of the season, whether that ends up being full 18 innings, whether they play one game and it gets rained out, whatever. Maybe I'll get so bored and mad at the chat, I'll just quit. But currently, that is my plan. I'm going to just stream the doubleheader. So come hang out, talk Arkansas baseball, whatever. That's what I'm going to be doing on Friday. I hope you will join me for however long you can. I understand you guys have lives, you have jobs, you have families, you have whatever. I get it. And maybe you'll just have to watch afterwards. Who knows? But or maybe you do that weird thing where you like avoid the score and then just start it at 6 p.m. and it'll be like, hey, I'm going to find out through this. But we will have updates. We will have live coverage. We're going to have a little score bug graphic that shows you the score and all that. And we're going to be just talking about all the developments that happen with this Arkansas baseball season as it gets going. So I wanted to announce that real quick. Before we talk about the starting rotation, because I do want to talk about that for a second, I want to also promote. So let me see if I can get this link real quick. I'll put the link, actually. I will have the link in the description to this video. If you're listening on YouTube or podcast, either one, I will have the link in the description of this video / podcast. But we now have our online store up at Inside Arkansas up and going. You can pre-order. So it'll take a while. We're going to have to see how many orders we get and all that, and then we'll ship them out. But you can go ahead and pre-order any of these items. You can get the Baumbastic hat here with like the rope in the front. I really love that style. You can get an Inside Arkansas t-shirt just to be a classic, support all of it. Or you can get a shirt or a hoodie with the Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson. That's going to be awesome. And so, look, I think you should get all these items. This is just pretty cool. I'm excited about this. We've been kind of wondering. We've had some people asking. We will be having merch. And so John tweeted out a link and I retweeted it. So if you can't find it on Twitter, like I said, the description of this video will have a link to this online store where you can place that pre-order. So go check that out. Not crazy expensive. And who knows how many people will end up buying them, but it'll be cool to see somebody at Baum wearing a Baumbastic Podcast hat. That would probably be like a dream come true type of thing. If you want a closer look at it, here is the Baumbastic Podcast hat. And there is the Inside Arkansas shirt. So yeah, did want to promote that real quick because we're pretty excited about that. And so I know there are a lot of people that have asked about it, and I still owe a guy, Steven Ingalls, I believe is his name. I still owe him a free Baumbastic hat. I need to get Hillary. I need to get my my worker here at home who she made the ones that I wear. My girlfriend just made them, so I might have to get her on that, see if she can make a couple of those to hand out for free. But if not, go check out the rope hat. It's gonna be really cool. So now moving on to the starting rotation real quick. So of course, if you've been listening to this podcast or just keeping up with Arkansas baseball this offseason, these four names did not come as a surprise to you. You have Gabe Gackle, the sophomore blue chip right-hander, going game one. That's your Friday guy. I guess you have two Friday guys in this instance. East Carolina transfers Zach Root gets the ball in game two, the left-hander. Right-hander Gage Wood Jr., he's been around for a few years. The pride and joy of Batesville, Arkansas. He will get the ball game three, and Landon Beidelshe's game four. So we've known kind of all along, all offseason, that you had four guys competing for three jobs when it comes to the weekend rotation. we also knew all offseason that Arkansas would open the season with a 4-game series, or at least it's going to be scheduled as a 4-game series. And so we really might not get that clarity until next week. And so the battle is still kind of ongoing. Me personally, my opinion and kind of reading between the lines and reading the tea leaves, I still feel like Landon Beidelshees is kind of being prepped to be that number 3 guy. He's pitched really well here in these scrimmages. They've had him, Gackle, and Root throw against the non-starting group each week, and they've also had Landon Beidelshees throw on Sunday all these weekends leading up to the season. Weirdly enough, they don't have him throwing on Sunday this game. And so a lot of people kind of noticed, hey, you got Gage Wood throwing game 3 and Beidelshees throwing game 4. Is that maybe a sign of things to come? And who knows? It might end up being. We'll see how it shakes out this weekend. And of course, the weekends after that. But here's what DVH had to say when he was asked about why the order of it shook out the way it did with Wood going game 3 and Beidelshees going game 4.
Yeah, I think there wasn't a whole lot to making that decision, honestly. It was just we have 4 games this weekend. The difference between 3 and 4, it's more of a we want to go right-hander the first game. We want to go lefty, come back with a righty, and then a lefty. It's there's no science to it, so to speak. Wood's been really good. We've hit him a little bit lately. I think he's been frustrated, but his stuff's been good. I think, when you start to see our guys swinging the bats against our own pitching, we get pretty familiar with them. And sometimes that happens a little bit. So excited about those 4. And, it's there's a lot of games and things could change, and I'm sure they will some. And but I feel good about our bullpen as well. So we feel good about the guys coming.
So there you have it. Again, he kind of downplayed it as like, hey, it really isn't that deep. We just went right, left, which makes sense. That's kind of what I thought when I first saw it, when I first heard him announce that. I've also been a guy, and I've said this publicly, that like, I don't really think that matters that much. Like I'm big, like I think right, left splits and all that in a particular matchup, hitter, pitcher certainly matters. But when it comes to rotation game to game, I don't know if it really matters. You always want to have a nice mix as a team, but I feel like, it doesn't really matter if it's not in the same game, like you have a day between games, you get to pick a completely different lineup. Like doesn't really matter the order in which they go in, but they've done this before. This is definitely not a unique thing. I think they always, like with Hunter Hall and Hagen Smith, they would always have one throw game 1 and one throw game 3, even though they were the 2 clear top guys on the team. It was just kind of one of those things. They kind of like to split up the lefties like that, split up the righties. So not a huge surprise. I also don't think it's going to be something like, I don't think they care that much to where that means Gage Wood is definitely going to be the game 3 starter moving forward because you got Gackle on Friday, Wood on Sunday or whatever. Like, I don't think they're going to try and do that all the time. But when you have 4 of them, 2 righties, 2 lefties, I guess it does kind of just make sense to alternate a little bit. And so there you have it on the starting rotation. I like also that he acknowledged that Gage had gotten, hit by the Razorback starting lineup here this past weekend, but he didn't put a ton of stock into it. One, because Gage Wood's stuff has been really good, which it has. According to the TrackMan, he was up to 97 on Saturday whenever he threw. And he also really, last week was really the first bad outing he's had the entire offseason. And that includes his time in the Cape. That includes the fall, starting, relieving, whatever. Like he's been really good all offseason. But also when you have guys that have seen him a ton, especially some guys like Kendall Diggs who have been there, like Kendall Diggs homered off of him, guys that have been facing him for 3 years now, or a guy that has been facing him for 3 years. And the starting lineup certainly is, of course, Arkansas's best hitters. They have a lot of familiarity there as well. Hell, Gackle's had a couple rough outings, which DVH spoke about actually, that Gackle, who I think he threw 2 1/3 on Friday last week in the final scrimmage of his preseason, and it didn't particularly go well for him. He threw about 66 pitches in those 2 1/3, ended up giving up 2 runs officially in an unofficial scrimmage. And he said he was not happy about it. And he said in his bullpen this past week, over the week, he had a little bit of extra fire to him. Like he kind of had a little something extra to prove. So you love to see that from a guy who's that talented. And if I know Gage Wood, I know he probably has a little something to prove. So I think you're going to see him pitching with some purpose on Saturday when he does throw game 3. I think you're going to see a fiery Gage Wood, and he's always fun to watch on the mound. So I look forward to seeing that. Again, I swore this would be a condensed episode. I'm not trying to keep you guys for an hour when you got a basketball game to watch later tonight. And I know this video is probably not going to pop off necessarily. But I did want to play this hilarious clip. So if you'll notice, I have an Arkansas baseball podcast where I literally talk about Arkansas baseball every day. And Arkansas plays Washington State in 2 days. And y'all haven't heard me speak about Washington State, not a once. And that's by design. I mean, frankly, no matter who Arkansas would have played this weekend, in week 1, when non-conference plays rolling around, it's really more about you and your team and what you have going on, because you never really know what to expect from a lot of these teams. But I did just definitely like Washington State in particular, though. They're not coming off a great year. They were bad last year, so it's easy to dismiss them there as well. But they also just don't have returning production on their roster. Curtis Wilkerson, shout out to him, who read a stat to me on the show today that I think he said they have 2 pitchers who have thrown a pitch in a Division I game on their roster, or at least available. I know they have a guy who's out for the year, one of their top most talented arms that might get drafted. Well, here's what DVH had to say about Washington State and sort of how they've been scouting the Cougars so far.
Our scouting report is brief, to the point where, if we wanted to do some shifting in the infield, so to speak, we really can't do it yet. We don't have enough info. There's not enough on these guys because there's so few at bats to go by. I mean, their starting pitcher, we have 3 pitches, and that's him throwing in a fall scrimmage, I think, or maybe it was junior college. This is what we're dealing with. We don't have a bunch of swings against him to go off of. And so what you do is you just play baseball and you kind of set them up straight up out there and you watch swings and see what they're doing. You make notes, and maybe game 2 you do a little more, or maybe the 3rd at bat you do something different. But you don't think they have any overpowering type arms. They're going to have guys who are going to throw in the low 90s like everybody. And but we know that they're going to go right the first game and left the second game and right the third game in TBA for number 4. So that's about all we have, honestly.
Yeah, so there you have it. Not much for this Razorback baseball team to really go off of, which, by the way, I think is an actually kind of interesting story as we go into this weekend. One, again, like I said, week 1, it's tough to scout most of these teams anyway, but Washington State in particular that has almost 0 returning players on their roster. Their coach is in year 2. He went 21-32 last year in his first year. And it's a program that's been in the 20s for their wins the last 4 or 5 years, usually a right around 500 type of team. So we'll see how improved they are. Very JUCO heavy roster. And so, again, we'll see how good they are. But I think that's interesting for Arkansas because this is a program that's one of the kind of pillars of this program is scouting and analytics, and they're tracking video, and they have all this fancy equipment. They have all these numbers for each pitcher. They know which matchups to go with. And you'll see once Arkansas gets into SEC play, when they start playing the LSUs, Mississippi States, Ole Misses, A&Ms of the world, where the rosters pretty well and there's a larger sample size, you'll start seeing Arkansas shift pretty drastically. And they're usually really good at it. That's one of the things that I think has set Arkansas apart defensively some of these last few years. One, they have really good defenders out there, but they're always kind of in the right spots. They're shaded over where they need to be. Hell, they do it to themselves at practice. The other day, Cam Kojal just rockets a line drive right to the middle, and it's just right at Vahiva Aloy because he's played right there. And so that's kind of a big piece of what Arkansas does defensively, and they're not really going to have that this weekend. And like DVH said, maybe that'll adjust over the next few games. Oh, hey, this guy really likes to go up. Maybe we'll shade over a little bit, but at least to start the year, not going to be much of a plan of attack for the Razorbacks in terms of the matchup. It's just going to be guys going out there and playing baseball. And Arkansas has some very good baseball players, so you expect them to fare pretty well. And when you have the pitchers that Arkansas has, it's a little bit easier to kind of just figure it out on the fly when you're throwing 98 at these guys. And so I expect them to handle this matchup pretty well, but it is going to be an interesting thing to watch play out. And I can't wait to watch it all play out with you guys. So I hope you guys will join me Friday at noon on this very channel we will be going live and we will be watching about 6 hours worth of baseball, give or take. Not sure for sure what I'm going to do in that little window. Maybe I'll just shoot the shit with the chat and chat with you guys. But we will see. So I appreciate you guys for tuning into this condensed episode of the Baumbastic Podcast. We will be back tomorrow to give a record prediction for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Looking forward to that. And then, of course, Friday, we will see you here for the live stream. It's been Andrew Ellis. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you guys tomorrow.